Hey there guys, welcome back. So yeah, this is part 2 of my Dark Souls 2 playthrough, and we've just entered the Forest of the Fallen Giants. Last video was just our introduction. Went through Majula, spoke to some NPCs, picked up a few reasonably valuable items, and now I'm about to make my way through the Forest of the Fallen Giants, which is normally people's first area they come through. So yeah, there's a few enemies here, quite easy, they're just hollow infantry. You'll see the lovely environment though, this flowing river, beautiful water effects, the overgrown trees. Looks like this place hasn't been inhabited for some time, which it hasn't. Your first bonfire of the area is just here to the right. Make sure you get that one, because if you don't get that bonfire and you die somewhere in here, you'll be transported back to Majula. As you can see, these guys here are quite easy. Not much more difficult than the guys in Things Betwixt. Make sure you get your targeting down pat and switching targets. Can really help in situations like the one that's coming up where you've got a few enemies on you at one time. So you can see we're picking up a few souls of lost undead and a few life gems, which are always handy. But apart from that, if we get out the binoculars, you can actually make out more of the fort. I think that's a bit of a destroyed part of the fort that we're about to run into. More hidden items just out of reach up there, and this ladder takes us up to arguably the first little test of your skills to see what you've learnt so far. Make sure you've got your healing items equipped, of course. I always equip a homeward bone just in case things get a bit too hairy. You can always teleport out of there ninja style. So up here you've got a couple of guys to the right and also a guy to the left. That will come eventually. There he is. You'll see those arrows coming in from the top as well. You may want to climb up just to the right of where I am now. I just picked up the broken straight sword. Nice, picking up more human effigies and of course more life gems as well. Another thing, you'll see some corpses on the ground. I have a general rule of thumb that if you see a corpse on the ground and it doesn't have an item, that guy's going to get up and start attacking you. So just make sure you're aware of that as well. Here we come up this ladder here. You can see the moss has just grown over this battlement or this little part of the fort here. A couple of undead infantry ready to ambush me. Not too difficult, of course, though. So this is the way you want to come up here. You will pick up a short sword, I believe, at the very end of this area where the archer is, just over there. You can see the beautiful artwork here with the roots of the tree sprawling out through the fort. You can see the little pyre of fireflies, and just over there, if you observe it enough, you can catch a glimpse of Drang Lake Castle, which will be our destination later on in the game. But yeah, simply drop down here carefully. Try not to get hit by too many arrows as I have. Taking out that guy. A quick jump over here will net us a short sword as well, which is a fairly handy weapon, especially if you don't have a lot of strength. So if you're playing something like a sorcerer or a cleric I believe you'll have the strength, but if you're playing a sorcerer or an explorer, you may not have the strength to wield anything apart from a short sword. You see there it only requires 10, but it actually has 7 strength, sorry, but it has 10 dexterity requirement. Alright, so now the archer's taken care of. I've got a free shot at this white knight here. He's actually a Haid knight. He's quite dangerous. If you don't have a shield, make sure you stay on your guard. Don't get too greedy. Now he does have a couple of attacks that can do quite a bit of damage, although he does tend to telegraph his attacks. And what I mean by that is he gives you a little warning as to what he's going to do next. So if he hesitates, which I hope you'll get to see, normally when he does his overhead smash as a third part of the combo, that's your chance for a backstab. Right here, where he hesitates like that, he's going to come straight at you for your head. Yeah, as long as you're awake to it, you shouldn't have too much trouble really. The reason I want to take him out now is because he does drop a really handy sword. So there it is, the Hade Knight sword. So it's naturally imbued with lightning. A little bit of a requirement there, 11 strength and 10 dex, but it has some nice scaling. It's got a C scaling of lightning and also a pretty nice moveset as well. Its initial R1 attack or its normal attack can actually sweep enemies off the ground. Particularly handy in the Forest of the Fallen Giants where a lot of them are sleeping on the ground. So in this room there's a little ambush of two guys. Once again, I have played this game quite a few times, so this is second nature to me. You'll probably want to be a little bit more careful than I'm being. Perhaps you'll want to pick up a shield as well. Either if you get a shield when you start as a warrior, that's great, but if not, save up the 1500 and buy one from Morlin. I have a foot soldier shield here, but as you can see, it doesn't have much of a defense rating. Alright, so making our way up the stairs. You'll see a firebomb guy behind me as well. The old Peyton Manning of the infantry, this guy. In the Forest of the Fallen Giants, apparently the trees here are the remnants of the giants who came and invaded. There's our buckler as well, a really cool shield for parrying, although it does have a little bit of a dex requirement at 13, so it's not something I can use just yet. Yes, a traditional small metal shield. Parrying in this game is a little bit different to Dark Souls 1. In Dark Souls 1 you were able to just wait until the enemy was just about to strike you. This time you have to press the parry button a little bit before. I like it, it makes it a little bit more difficult. You'll see there, as soon as you pick up those witching urns, that halberd infantry is going to stand up. Now down here, if we get the binoculars out, there's a few items that I can see. One down there that I won't be able to get to just yet, but as you can see there, the crumbling remains of this fort or this castle. It's quite nice when it's blended with the roots of the trees and the natural vegetation that's overgrown the place. We can see fire burning down there as well. It's a never-ending fire that comes from the gap in that building there. You don't necessarily need to jump there to grab that. You can just climb up the route to my left there. As you can see, we've got a couple of little caves. Whether or not those are strategic for the warriors to stand in and hide, or whether they were actually mining something, I'm not too sure. What I can tell you is that in one of them we will find a really handy item. Inside that room is the ladder that we come down normally when we open the door in the Cardinal Tower. Very careful running down here as well. Falling off of this route from too high up will be death. Trust me on that as well. You can see my broadsword is currently at risk, so it's probably about to break, but that's not too much of a big deal as I've got a couple of weapons that I can use. The short sword will be one of them. Another thing to be careful of in this area as well is that you do have, I think, 3 or 4 enemies that come at you as soon as you get down there. So now that I've equipped the short sword, I don't have the requirements to use it, but as long as I can deal with this enemy here, we should be all fine. It pays to stay at the bonfires because it does restore your weapon's durability as well. So if you're like me and you sometimes forget to rest at the bonfire, if you just light the bonfire, that won't restore your weapon's durability. You actually need to rest at it. So we've got a couple of wandering undead infantry here as well. You can see they're even two-handing the short sword. It takes quite a few hits to take them out. It's really important that you meet the requirements before you actually equip weapons. I was in a desperate situation here. So you can see there they've got a couple of people turned to stone, and right down there's a fire-spitting salamander as well. You will notice that I did get hit by those fireballs, but it doesn't do any damage. That's because I'm opening the door. But in this chest here is your fire longsword. It's a really cool starting weapon. You find a lot of people get so comfortable with this weapon that they use it all the way through the game, and I don't really blame them. It is a quality weapon. But yeah, if you don't handle those 2 guys that drop down, they will chase you in there and, well, make mincemeat of you if you're not careful. You can see there are a few people here that have been put to stone. Everything in the Forest of the Fallen Giants are the remains of a war that was waged long ago. Just racing back down there to pick up that soul. And the other item that we want to grab here are a few life gems around this corner part here. And a ladder will take us back up to where we need to be. This whole area here is completely optional, but I do recommend coming down there even if you do just come down as a speed run sort of thing to grab that sword. It's normally a good idea as well when you've got a few souls before you come here to at least level up your strength to somewhere around 10 or 11 so you can use both the Hade Knight sword and also the Fire Longsword. And you require 9 dexterity for the Fire Longsword and 10 dexterity for the Hade Knight sword. But in here, this is the Cardinal Tower, and you can see the overgrown trees that already infested this place. Got an undead merchant there with her backpack on. And just lighting this bonfire, I'm going to go talk to her. Her name is Majula. And if you exhaust all of her dialogue, she does move back to Majula eventually. She's got a few little insights onto what happened before we arrived here and what happened in the war. So I'm just going to talk to her and listen to what she has to say. So this is Majula, the hag merchant.
My name is Majula. You're a stranger to this land. Oh, we get as strangers these days. Everybody's gone and run off. Dranglake's been a pile of rubble since the war fought long, long ago. And the giants crossed the sea. It seemed like the battles would never end. Poor folk like myself have nary a place to sleep. That's why I keep all me things right with me. You may travel light, but methinks you bear a burden of your own. They say these trees grew from the remains of the giants, from each carcass sprouting new life growing into what you see now. But you know what they also say? Don't believe what an old hag says. It's high time that I pick up a move. I've a bargain for you.
So it's when she says that line of dialogue, that's when you know you've exhausted everything she has to say. I'm not entirely sure how she managed to survive the war with the giants, and the giants crossed the sea, as she said, but she sells a couple of cool items here. She sells the club, which is good. It's always good to have a blunt weapon on hand at all times, just because of the damage it does to armoured enemies. You've got the caestus as well, which is a fist weapon. The travelling merchant stuff is the explorer's starting gear, and probably the thing that you're going to want to pick up is that hat, because it raises item discovery, as we'll see there. She also sells a couple of cool items, a few human effigies. She has an unlimited supply of life gems after she moves to Majula. Also the key you'll see there is 1,000 souls. That will unlock the door for Leningrast, so make sure you pick that one up. And you'll see in a minute, I'm buying a couple of fire bombs because I want to open up a shortcut on the other side of the wall here. And the other good thing that she sells are throwing knives, which in this game, especially early on, are really, really handy. Sorry.
Thank you.
Valentia is crafty though. She did pick up Leningrast keys. You'll said that, as he alluded to before, somebody actually locked the door and took off. Whether or not Malentia locked it or whether he dropped it somewhere and she just picked it up, who knows, but she does seem like a crafty little lady, especially if she was able to survive the war and, you know, make it here with her little belongings on her back. If you can spare it, I'd probably buy that Pharos Lockstone as well, just because you'll be able to use it very shortly and grab yourself a couple of cool treasures. It is a big investment. You may want to spend that money on on levels. It's up to you though. But essentially the way forward is down this ladder here, so... As you can see, those guys on the ground, always make sure you attack anybody who doesn't hold a treasure on the ground. And there's another one just here as well. That door behind me just to the left there, you can't open that yet, but we will be able to go in there very shortly. So as you can see down there, there's that lizard there is the same lizard that is guarding the longsword, or the fire longsword treasure. A word of warning, you have absolutely no chance of survival either. If you jump down there with no clothes on and no armor on, you'll probably 99% of the time you will die. And if you don't die there, those salamanders will just eat you alive. So I wouldn't even suggest it, not at this point. So here you'll see another enemy that's waiting in ambush. Alright, so we see another open courtyard. This is built under where the little river here releases. There's also a little catchment by the looks of it here as well. These dilapidated buildings, easy enough to traverse if you know where to jump. Just make sure you're aware that there's two archers that are going to shoot you as well. And I think that may be our first encounter with an enemy who holds a shield. Just be sure to heal up. Take your time if you need to and make sure you keep your shield up in here because this part can get really annoying. You'll need to sprint just off the corner here and jump right at the end. Sometimes you'll get unlucky and get shot by the archers just as you're about to jump and that'll ruin it and you'll die. But just make your way into the left here, so we'll see an abandoned mine shaft. And up here is a little NPC that we can speak to. His name is Kale. We'll speak to him now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just daydreaming, I think. My name is Kale. I'm a traveler, like yourself. I'm navigating the continent to create a map. Why cartography, you ask? Well, that's a good question. When I first came to this forsaken land, it was... a curse? Something about a curse? How embarrassing. I seem to have lost my focus.
So as you can see firsthand, that curse really does make people lose their mind and their memory.
I've always been very fond of maps. I came to this land some time ago. Drangleic, the Lost Kingdom. It sounded so romantic. Have you seen Majula? Oh, there's a rather spacious mansion there. I've made it my temporary home. Well, as something of a squatter, I'm afraid. Inside the mansion, I found a strange map, like none I'd ever seen. I believe that it's a map of Drangleic. Now I'm traveling the land to prove it. Yes, that's it. That's why I came to the kingdom. Wait. No, that wasn't it. Then what? I don't seem to recall. Were you looking for that map? Wonderful. Then you're fascinated by maps, just like me. Shame on you. You should have told me before. Here, take this. A key to the mansion.
So that will open up that house that was locked before. It has the Estus flask in the well.
Incredible, really, isn't it? Such a map to be chiseled in stone. Oh, but one thing. I would not venture deep into the mansion. Now, I can't be certain, but I've heard disturbing noises. Something about it feels wrong. Just be careful, please.
Now it's interesting, although Kale tells you not to go into the basement of the mansion, if you do go down there, you'll meet a skeleton. You'll need to clear that skeleton out before he'll actually move back to Majula. Once he does go back to Majula, his little quest line can continue. There are a couple of handy items in that mansion as well, which is always good to come over here and get the key off of Kale. Once again, this is another area of the Forest of the Fallen Giants. This is optional. Essentially, all you need to do when you come through the fog door is run up that tree route and up to the next part of the area. But this whole part here, if you're a completionist like me, definitely come over here and speak to Kale. And who doesn't love an opportunity to test their steel against these hollow infantry? I'm just going to drop down here. I just want to grab a few more items that are in this place before we move on. As you can see, just over there, there's a couple of items. There's one glowing over there. So you can just come over here. Make sure you've cleared all the enemies out before you do this, or else you might be in a little bit of trouble. Just drop down there carefully. just to the left here, if you take the left path of this little wooden boardwalk, you come down and grab another Titanite shard. And pretty much that's about it for this little part, so I'm just going to make my way back and continue on. It's nice that they've incorporated the natural as well as the man-made in this level as well, like being able to climb up the tree roots. This would have been a much different story and a much different level layout had not been already overrun with vegetation. You can see the little guards that the enemies stand behind still stand to this day. And these poor lost undead infantry, whether or not they're unfortunate, they've survived the war with the giants, but they've gone hollow, so... Just there ahead, this is why I bought the... that's why I bought the, what are they called? The fire bombs. Jeez, I lost my memory there for a second, I might have the curse. Open that up, it opens up a handy shortcut so you won't need to run all the way back around every time. So I'm just going to come back to Majula now, and we're going to open up the mansion that Kale gave us the key to. Another really cool thing about the mansion is, if you have played Dark Souls, it makes the experience of Dark Souls 2 a whole lot better if you are familiar with the story of Dark Souls 1. In here you'll see a fairly formidable library, but it's what's in the basement that really intrigues me and a lot of other Souls fans. So you can pick up a Pharos lockstone there. Down here is the room where Kale sits. Down here is where the most interesting things lie. Now, be careful with the skeleton. They can parry, they can backstab, and they do a fair bit of damage as well. They have a 100% drop rate of a human effigy, which is also good. And an Estus Flask shard, another really handy item. In this chest, you should normally find a soul vessel, which will allow you to reallocate your points. So, if you've made a build and you're not happy with the way it's turning out, you will be able to come back to the Firekeeper's dwelling and things for Twixt and reallocate your points. I think that's probably the best feature they incorporated into Dark Souls 2, was the ability to change your builds. As you can see, the Pharos Lockstone made by an explorer called Pharos the Vagabond. This map here, every time you defeat a boss, once Kale is back in this room, a little fire will start to burn on the map, showing where you've been and what areas you've cleared. Once it takes shape and once you've, gotten some progress through the game, it actually starts to show you exactly where you've been, which is really, really cool. My favourite, Titanite shards times 3. So if you're smart about things, you can pick up Leningrast's key from Majula. You can pick up about 5 or 6 Titanite shards, and you can really strengthen some of the weapons that you get right off the bat here before you even need to take on a boss. Leningrast's chest here contains a short bow, which is another really good item to grab. Not too much requirements there, only 7 strength. 12 dexterity could be a problem until you level up a little bit.
Ah yes, very good. Now I can get to work. But first, let me set up. Come again later.
All you really need to do here is go back to the bonfire and rest. Once you rest at the bonfire, he'll go back inside. And don't forget to speak to the Emerald Herald anytime you pick up an Estus Flask shard to reinforce the Estus Flask.
Is that a shard you found?
Anytime you speak to her, she'll remind
Here,
you of it anyway.
let me
so
see
you shouldn't really have any excuse for
so that I
forgetting.
may help you. to see light, to see hope, however faint it might be.
So I was fortunate enough to pick up 2 more, so I believe that'll make 4 Estus Flask shards. Oh, 4 swigs of Estus, sorry. But already you can see they've tried to make healing a little bit harder in this one as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to level up dexterity a few times just so I can use those weapons and short bow. It's always important to level up your endurance as well. You don't want to run out of stamina. It's probably the most harmful thing that can happen to you in this game. Without stamina you can't do anything. You can't block, attack, move, roll, nothing. Alright, so now that I've come back to Majula just to tidy up those ends, I'm going to come back to the Cardinal Tower bonfire. Through that shortcut that we opened, we'll be able to take on the first boss. And when taking on the boss that appears here, make sure you always take out the firebomb thrower. This can make it a little bit more difficult. As you can see, those guys with shields can be problematic. They can still attack even when their shields are raised. And that's something we can do as well. If we pick up a spear, you can still attack from behind the shield. Alright, so I'll let you guys watch his introduction. This is a boss called the Pursuer. It's a little bit earlier than when you're supposed to take him on. If you feel up to the challenge, come up here and fight him. It doesn't really make any difference when you fight him. He has a few attacks that you've got to be careful of. That blue blade thrust, that'll actually curse you. That attack that he just did there where he raises his shield and charges, that's probably your best time to attack. You just roll forward and to the right and you'll always be able to get 1 or 2 hits in on him. He does have quite high HP and you won't be doing very much damage at this point, so it's a bit like a war of attrition, but he's not that difficult. Just try not to get... pretty much try not to get hit at all. Make use of the rolls. Because if he does get you in a combo, it's probably going to result in death. Now, if you look closely on his armor, you can see that his armor is actually made up of, well, it has the motif of skulls. And he looks like to be something of a weapon master as well. He looks to have picked up quite a number of weapons in his little backpack. And you can see that design on the shield as well. It's nice and rounded, so I would imagine it would be good for deflecting strikes as well as blocking, so he'd probably be able to parry some strikes as well. It does remind me a little bit of Darth Vader as well, just with the breathing that you can hear. If you listen carefully enough, you can hear him breathing through his helmet. So there's that charge attack where you can just punish him. Another thing I always try and do is I try and roll, when I'm going to roll through an attack, I always roll, through it, so in the opposite direction. I found that that's the best way to roll. It means you're at the least chance of actually getting hit when you come out of the roll as well. And that charge attack is your best opportunity to take a life gem or an Estus as well. I I don't normally get too greedy when he gets staggered, because he doesn't normally last in stagger very long. He normally gets straight back into it. And all it really takes is one lapse in concentration and he'll punish you and kill you. You can see that with his shield with little notches in it, he's able to attack from behind the shield as well. So, defeating the Pursuer, you get the Ring of Blades. The Ring of Blades is probably something you'll want to have equipped your entire playthrough, as it increases your attack damage. And I think the first Ring of Blades you pick up, the attack bonus it gives you is equivalent to about leveling up your weapon 2 or 3 times, from what I remember. And also the Soul of Pursuer, which you'll be able to use to trade for a couple of items as well. So yeah, that was the first boss done. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to make my way back to the bonfire and rest and recuperate. Going to make another video of taking on the rest of the Forest of the Fallen Giants and the next boss, which will be the last giant. So make sure you stay tuned. As I said before, just leave me a like and a subscribe if you liked the content, and hope you can join me in part 3. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Peace out.